There are people who watch Peep Show and they watch an episode of it every day. And when they get to the end of the 9 series and the 54 episodes, they just start back at series 1, episode 1. And that's wonderful. I think it's just because it's about, in a way, it's almost Shakespearean. Because it's about the banal thing of 2 guys who share a flat who really can't do life.
The lack of communication between them as well.
Yeah, and the way that people try and impress other people by creating, shared the El Dude brothers and all that and everything. And I think that's what its great success is. I mean,
thank you for joining me, Paul.
It's great. Such a long way to come.
I know. I want to chat to you because you're writing your autobiography. I want to hear some tales from your life. But also, from what I've heard about you and your acting career, I don't actually know how it all began. And I want to hear how you got started in the first place. Were you doing plays in school when you were a kid, or did it start later?
I have a memory of doing a play. And it would have been the last year of infant school. So we don't have year 1 and 2 then, we had infants. And in the village I come from in South Yorkshire, the infant school and the junior school shared the same playground, and they were on a hill, the infants at the bottom, the juniors at the top. So you did aspire to go up the hill. And it was Miss Woodcock's class, a name that I think even then elicited a smirk. And I don't know why, but I co-opted Christine Evans and Susan Clark to be in a play. And rehearsals took place in the playground at playtime, which were me telling them what we'd do. And then we asked if we could show the play to the class. And so on, as it is in my memory, a Friday afternoon, as most drama begins, with a semicircle of chairs pushed back to create a space. And we did a play that I know involved a witch, which was Christine Evans, a princess, Susan Clark, and a bold and courageous soldier. And we are pushing the casting envelope here. I can't really tell you more than that, except that it was all good. So I'm assuming something, horrible happened to the witch, and the soldier and the princess lived on. I don't know whether they, were married. I think they might find that years later they'd have to go to relate or something. In my memory, it probably lasted 10 minutes. Probably in reality, it probably lasted 3 or 4. But I remember at the end standing there with a tentative bow and all the rest of the class clapping. I don't know whether people had laughed. I don't know whether there were any jokes in it. And I just liked that feeling. And so I carried on. And when we got to junior school, I kept asking my teachers, could we do plays? And in junior school, some of them were good, and some Miss Heppenstall in the second year was great. And we'd do one. We'd create one every Friday afternoon for the last 10 minutes of class. And Rosemary Bock and I both had matching blue anoraks. So we created an almost serial drama called The Two Blue Hoods, which was based on Doctor Who, really, that the two blue hoods travelled throughout time. But again, rehearsed in the playground by me telling everybody what they do. Of course, I don't do that now. But I think that's it. And so it sort of fermented itself in story. And I also have a memory, funnily enough, of writing a story in that infant class and it getting a really good mark. And you used to get stars on your work, stick-on stars, 2, 3, I think 4 was the max. But when you'd got 10 in your book, you could go to Miss Nelson, the headmistress, and you got jelly babies. Bribe those children with sugar.
An incentive.
Yeah. And I wrote a story. And I know there was a wolf in it. But, so it might have been a bit derivative. But I got 4 stars, which completed what I required for the sort of early Green Shield stamps, you know, or whatever, nectar points. And I got my jelly babies. And it's funny that both those things, writing and acting or doing plays, started at the same time in school.
Did you grow up with the idea that you were going to be an actor after that, or when did that come along? What did you grow up thinking you were going to do?
I don't know. I mean, I think quite quickly it formulated into being an actor. I was quite, possibly I still am, I was quite clever, okay? So my school had 4 automatic places to go to grammar school, which was about 8 or 9 miles away. Some of those places would be filled by people doing the 11 plus. I wasn't taken to do the 11 plus. On the Saturday morning, when a lot of my year went off to do their 11 plus, I didn't go, and I thought I hadn't been picked, and I was distraught. And my mother knew that I was going to grammar school because she'd been told. My mother was very big on the PTA, the Parent Teachers Association, but she wasn't allowed to tell me. So I thought, why has everybody else gone off on the school bus and they've gone to do this exam and I haven't? But it was because evidently I was the cleverest person in the school and I was automatically going to grammar school.
Right.
And I think that was sort of meant that I was supposed to follow, you know, that meant high careers were going to be an option, like law or things like that. I think the boy I sat next to on the first day of grammar school became something very high up in BP, like the CEO of BP. He turned up for my 50th birthday, I remember. But yeah, we were all encouraged to be very aspirational. If you were going to grammar, Maltby Grammar School, which was about 8 miles away, and we went on a green bus, which came into the village every day and stopped on the village green outside the pub, and it picked you up at 8:20. And you got on the bus, and various things would happen on the bus. People would get beaten up. People would admire each other. People would share porn. That was good. A lot of my early learning about mating came from the school bus.
You were in the porn lot on the bus.
Yeah, upstairs. Grainy pictures of, practices I don't think I'd want to carry out in real life. But I think I just slowly, at school, at Maltby they did school plays, so that was really easy to be in big plays which had costumes. They weren't rehearsed in the playground, they were rehearsed after school. They were very proud of their school plays. So I think I was a bystander and person at the ball in Pygmalion in my first year, and it just sort of cemented itself that I'd like to do this. And all the time the school was saying, I was going to be Oxbridge material. I was taken on what was the Oxbridge tour, where you went and you did a day, and the coach took you to Oxford, and you did 2 hours in Oxford, and the coach drove to Cambridge. You did 2 hours in Cambridge, and then you came back. So they were selling it very hard. But by that time, I had determined, I toyed with journalism.
Right. What specifically?
Just the idea of writing things and whatever. Careers was a small room in the old building with pamphlets. So you'd go and look at pamphlets. There were no pamphlets about drama. There was one thing in the school library about there was a place called RADA. But there was a pamphlet that I suppose was quite extensive about journalism, about 6 pages long, about local papers and applying for scholarships and things. But my heart wasn't in it. And so I kept saying, I'm going to do, well, you need to do this, Clayton, because you're Oxford. And I went, I don't want to go to Oxford. And my school, actually, the one big mistake they made, and my mother never forgave them, bless her, was that they never sold me and did their research and said, actually, Oxford and Cambridge are probably as good as a drama school. They certainly were in the 1970s.
We had like footlights and things like that.
Yeah,
so
all that stuff.
You assumed maybe you'd go there.
I could have been Emma Thompson. And sadly, I'm not. I did meet Emma Thompson at a very young age, and she's gorgeous. But yeah, but I that was a route, but they didn't investigate it. And in a way, they just closed down on me and they went, okay. So I carried on. I went to the National Youth Theatre. I was I made great things in school plays. We did Oh, What a Lovely War, The Life and Crimes of Al Capone, Toad of Toad Hall. Really, and they did some quite innovative stuff. We had some great teachers. We had an art teacher, Mr. Fernside, who organised the sets and created, and it was, really exciting stuff to be part of. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And then by the time I was then doing that and in the National Youth Theatre, it was my A-levels, and I thought, right, I'll show you. So I did a quick bit of revision and got 3 A's and a B. And when you had to go into school in those days to get your results, and I went in, and the headmaster and people were stood in the corridors. We went up to look on the list in the school office, and they went, you could have gone to Oxford, Clayton. Look at these grades. They're very good. And I went, yeah, I could, but I'm not. And I applied to RADA, and I got a place, and then you didn't get a grant. It was a discretionary grant from Rotherham, and you had to go and see the Rotherham's drama advisor, who was probably a menopausal woman in a cardigan sitting in a church hall on a Saturday afternoon. And you went in and you did your audition speeches, and she said I wasn't good enough. And RADA had said, yeah, great. And this woman, I'm going to track her down one day. She said no. And my parents couldn't afford to send me, and I didn't get a scholarship at RADA. So the only place on the National Conference of Drama Schools at that time where if you had 2 A-levels you got a mandatory grant was Manchester Polytechnic School of Theatre. So I packed my bags and headed off across the Pennines to Manchester, which was great. And I'd done the National Youth Theatre in London, which was a great way of meeting lots of people. But yeah.
What was drama school like back then? I feel like there's loads of horror stories of ways that drama schools used to not quite go about things in the most PC way, and they're quite modern now. I've heard of strange teachers. And
Yeah, there were. There was a guy who was an ex-television director. So Manchester Poly School of Theatre then was doing well. So David Threlfall was in the 3rd year. Julie Walters and quite a few other people had come out of it. Richard Griffiths. So it was on and up. And I think drama schools do that. They all go up and down. Sometimes it's Royal Welsh, sometimes it's Bristol Old Vic, sometimes it's Central.
Sure.
So it was on and up. There was an ex-TV director, and he used to do these acting classes with us, which basically meant that if you broke down and cried, that was really good. And eventually I gave up and pretended to cry, and he fell for it, and that meant I just thought, you are a wanker.
I had an experience like that in New York. We had a teacher, I can't remember her name, and I probably shouldn't say it even if I did, but she was big in Broadway at the time when I was studying in New York for a year. And I can't remember, I came in one day and I was really tired, and she sort of accused me of being hungover, which was horrible. And the thing that caught my attention was that regularly during classes when we were just doing acting exercises, she would name drop people that she'd worked with. And I was like, why is this relevant to what we're learning? We're first years in drama school. I don't care who you've worked with. We're trying to learn how to act. And I realised it was a crock of shite, and New York is a terrible place to learn acting. I always say it's the best place if you want to be a musical actor. It's the best place in the world. But then you've got musical actors who come to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland and study there. And I'm like, it was Americans as well. And I'm like, why aren't you studying in New York? Because that's the biggest place in the world for musicals. And I realised that most of the plays I was seeing in New York were National Theatre Live productions on a screen, because the straight plays there weren't very good, and that the UK was the place to come for it. But I feel like drama schools can be a breeding ground for that sort of a thing. Not so much anymore.
No, there's also a thing of, I wonder how many people at drama schools are genuinely there because they want to teach, or because they set out to do, and the doing didn't happen, so they're teaching. I mean, I've directed at drama schools, and it's great fun. But then I remember I have done things where I thought I've just been here too long. I need to, and go and work. So I've been lucky enough, touching wood, that I haven't taken a permanent position there, and I wasn't. But then I have seen people alongside me who were, had done exactly that, and are there, and they're a bit tired of it, and there is that tiny bit of resentment. And there are some brilliant teachers. We had a lovely guy called John McGregor, and in the mid-50s he'd been a big hopeful, right alongside Ian Holm, and they'd been at Stratford together. I think they'd played the brothers in Olivier's Titus Andronicus, and they were going places. And then Ian Holm went places and John McGregor didn't. And he'd married a lovely woman called June Howson, who became a very big executive drama producer at Granada. So they were based in Manchester. And John he'd turn up on television playing doctors and judges and things. But he came in, I don't know whether he was part-time or permanent, but his classes were really about, he did one on Friday mornings that was called Presentation, but it was all about business.
Right.
So it was all about the art of the double take and the slow burn and the broken drink in an Agatha Christie, where you're telling somebody like, oh, yes, I saw Mr. Zachar going to the vicarage about 2:30. I thought nothing of it. And cigarette business, and his plays that he did with the third year, he directed one production a year, were always business plays. So we did Lord Arthur Savile's Crime by Constance Cox, which is a dreadful Oscar Wilde parody. But at one point it has an anarchist with a bomb, and the bomb's under the women on the chaise longue, and Lord Arthur's having to move the bomb, and it's fizzing, and then you take it, no, you take it. But I love all that. I absolutely love all that. And when I was chairman of the Actors Centre many years later and running the Alan Bates Award, part of the semi-final process would be that we would do a session on comedy, and it would be reliant on not motivating and all that, but entirely on technique, yes, and being able to punctuate a line. But he was brilliant. Answering the telephone, he used to put a telephone in the middle of the circle, and then he'd say, Sir Peter Hall's about to ring, and he had a little button. He was very proud of his gadget that rang the telephone, and then you pick it up and go, oh, hello, Sir Peter Hall. Some people go, hello, Sir Peter Hall. Oh, for me, a whole season at the National. Oh, well, I'd be interested, yeah. And it was all about that thing about putting somebody else on the other end of the telephone, and I loved all that, the technique of doing what we do. I wasn't very good at finding my inner soul and things. I was very good at finding the light, and I was very good at superficial stuff. For a long time, I think I was gloriously superficial. Meaning I knew how to face front, and I knew how to check what was going on behind me. And I don't think I ever really... What's that wonderful song in chorus line, And I felt nothing, I'm feeling nothing, and they said nothing could get a guy transferred. And I think, yeah, I felt nothing quite a lot. I didn't get that...
There's no emotive...
No, I would look at other people.
Sort of
I would look at other people and think, what are you feeling? Because I am aware of what I'm doing, but I'm being convincing, and I got great roles and things, and I got a first. It did change a little bit in the third year. A director came in from the Royal Exchange, which had just opened, a young director. He was their assistant director, and as part of the deal, he came in to direct Hedda Gabler, and I fancied him like crazy. He had a red E-type Jaguar and collar-length hair and a red velvet jacket. I mean, that was sex on legs. But I got picked to be in that play. So the rest of the year, about 18 of them were doing The Lower Depths by Gorky, and 7 of us were doing Hedda Gabler. So that was the show to be in. And I played Judge Brack. And I discovered the fact that not everybody had to be like this. And I don't know whether I'd seen something on the telly that had inspired me, but I just made Judge Brack very softly spoken. And in so doing, I sort of had to find where the rest of my energy went. And I think it went inside. So I did suddenly think, I am thinking like him. I'm looking at this woman. And we did it in the round, which is very... And my first job then was at the Royal Exchange. So I did a lot in the round, which is very exposing. So that ability to focus out front, which I'd mastered, was taken away. You have to focus on the other people in the world.
So did you find that was sort of your way into the emotive side of things, or
I think
you just
so,
took
yeah.
what you already knew and made it arguably smaller for this character?
I did. I still wasn't afraid of the fact of being able to do the odd, double take at Hedda Gabler when she was being ridiculous and things. But yeah, there was an actor I really admired who went on to be a TV producer, and I can never remember the series he created, but it ran for about 21 years. But Roy Mitchell, and Roy was tall, handsome, had deaf parents, so he had this wonderful enunciation ability. He came from Birmingham. Everybody wanted to be Roy Mitchell. And after we'd done, and he just had this almost like filmic quality when he was acting. And after Hedda Gabler, I remembered he was waiting in the foyer after the show, and he just came up and just went, "God, that was good. You were so good." And I thought, that's it. If Roy Mitchell thinks I'm good. Roy Mitchell has never employed me in television. But yes, no, I think that was the thing of it's a slow process. And it's not something I'm not really bothered about, letting my guts hang out in the work. It's telling stories, and the worst way to make an audience cry is to cry yourself. Never cry. Always hold the tears back, because the thing that's most affecting for an audience is watching somebody trying not to cry. The minute you've released it, there's nowhere else to go.
Especially if you're doing a play and you need to cry, depending on the scene.
Yeah.
You need to repeat that for months on end every single night at 8:30. It's exhausting.
Yeah, and also that applies to climbing fences as well. So Jared Harris, bless him, and I, years later, were doing Treasure Island at the Theatre Clwyd. Yes, not a production I wish to recall, really. And Jared was great fun and fab and energetic and brilliant. And in the stockade scene in the second act, we were being attacked, and there were some people at the fence, which was mainly being done by people on the other side of the fence, stage management waving sticks, because we didn't have enough actors. And Jared, in rehearsal, blocked the fact that he jumped on this box, jumped on the fence, and leapt over the fence, and it was really brilliant. He did it twice, and I just very kindly took him to one side and went, 86 performances, 8 weeks, twice a day. Do you want to do that? And I think he lasted about 4.5, 5 weeks doing it, and then it got slightly adapted.
So then what was it like coming out of drama school? Because telly it existed, but it didn't exist to the state that it does now. So were you doing a lot of theatre? Were you wanting to break into telly? What were you interested in doing at the time?
I don't think you had a choice, really. Everybody wrote to the reps, and it was assumed that we would all go to reps. The interesting thing was that I got my equity card in my first year through a fluke. And the Royal Festival Ballet came to the Opera House in Manchester, and some of us were asked to go in on a Sunday, and they were looking for supernumeraries. And I was picked to be a supernumerary, but I was picked to be the Prince's guard. Right. So basically, when the Prince came on, the guard came on, literally holding a spear. And if the Prince was in blue, the guard was in blue. And if the Prince was in grey, there were 3 acts, 3 colours. And there were different princes every night. So we were rehearsed in on the Monday afternoon. It was a touring production. And the rest of them were in a crowd for when Sleeping Beauty pricked herself on the wheel or whatever. And but I was Prince's guard, yay. And we had different princes every night. The infamous story is that on the Wednesday night, on the Wednesday, afternoon and evening, we had Rudolf Nureyev, who was the greatest male ballet dancer of his generation, defected from Russia, the USSR, to be here. And so everybody was really excited. And I did the afternoon and followed him around. And I mean, he was just the energy, the charisma. He probably wasn't the best dancer technically, but the sheer charisma of this man. And then I went out with some of the other people who were in the crowd between the shows to have fish and chips, and got back, went up to my dressing room, and all my costumes had moved. And I went to find somebody, and then somebody went, they're downstairs, you need to go downstairs to dressing room number 1. And I went downstairs, and I was hanging about outside, desperate to knock on the door, and somebody came out, a dresser, and I went, I've been told I've got to come down here about my costumes. She went, oh yes. And she opened the door, and dressing room 1 had a lounge and then a dressing room. And in the lounge, my guards' costumes were hanging up. And I went, oh, am I taking them back upstairs? And then he came out from the dressing room and stood, and he was just in a dressing gown. He stood in the doorway, and he... This is where you realise why I don't play Russians. He stood in the doorway and went, you don't have to go upstairs every time. You change, I change. We change here, yes? And I said, yeah. So I just took my trousers off in his lounge and started putting on my uniform and did this. And then at the end of that show, of course, loads of people came, and there were drinks in this lounge, and I got turned into a sort of waiter pouring drinks and handing round this tray of rather limp sausage rolls. And the tragic thing was there were all these people around him, but at the end of it, they all disappeared, and he was there on his own, and he got his bag. And then he just said to me, he said, you want to eat? And I was just, and I went, yeah, sure. Yeah. I didn't say it with a Russian accent.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, sure, I said. And we went to the Midland Hotel, which was quite simply the grandest place in Manchester up the road. And we walked into the restaurant, and this must have been 11:10. And this would have been about 1975, 76. And he just ordered steaks and salad. And we sat, and he asked questions about what do you want to be? And I told him I want to be an actor. And he was just amazing. And I thought, oh, and I think everybody goes like, oh, and was he trying to seduce you? They all expect this story to end up with me going to bed with Rudolf Nureyev. And no. And then he said, you know, you get home. And I said, I'm going to get the night bus. And he went, no. And he gave me, I think, about £2 for a taxi.
When you could pay £2 for a taxi.
It was £1.50. That was change. And the bizarre thing is, just romping ahead to finish this story, my first job with the Royal Exchange Theatre in Manchester was a European tour of The Winter's Tale. And we toured a lot of theatres in Europe, and we were playing Cologne. And a lot of European theatres have the opera house and the theatre, the Schauspielhaus, in the same building, a bit like our National Theatre now. And in Cologne, while we were doing The Winter's Tale on this Saturday night, the Dutch National Ballet were doing Don Quixote with Rudolf Nureyev. Right. I thought, oh, fine. So I didn't think I really mentioned it to anybody. Anyway, we get in the lift, and you couldn't go to the stage in the lift in case it broke down, but if you were coming away from the stage for the interval, you could use the lift. So we come off for our interval, and we get in the lift, and there are the people standing around, and there's this, obviously, his big hat, but looking like but it's Nureyev playing Don Quixote, and I get in the lift, and I'm thinking, shit. And I stand against the wall, and this lift is absolutely packed. And then he just went, hey, actor, and pointed at me. and got out the lift and chatted and went, great, okay, it's good, yeah. And then he disappeared off with people. I thought, and the boys were all going, what's that about? Oh, God. So I started telling the story. And then we had our interval, which was quite long for some reason. And then I was just about to go back upstairs to start Act 2. I think I wasn't on for the first scene of Act 2. And somebody came and they had a card and they went, Mr. Paul Clayton. I went, yeah. And I said, yeah. And they said, they gave me the card and they stood there and they said, I'm just waiting for your answer. And I went, oh, and I looked at the card and all it said was dinner, ? Bring friends, Rudolph. And I went, okay, yeah, tell him yeah. And then I said to the boys, like, does anybody want to have dinner with Rudolph Nureyev? So about 5 of us went, and we waited at the stage door, and he came out and introduced everybody, and he took us to this restaurant, which was obviously one of the nicest restaurants in Cologne. And in our production of The Winter's Tale, you were either on the poster with your name above the title, or you weren't on the poster. So we had about 8, 10 names.
Were you on the poster?
No.
Who were you in The Winter's Tale?
I was Dion,
Okay.
or Dion, who brings the oracle back with Cleomenes. And then I was a dancing bohemian shepherd, naked to the waist in fur breeches with lots of fake tan. And then we had big robes to become older Dion, who was also emerged with the part of first gentleman for the scenes back in Sicilia. So it was a nice first job, and it was a lovely cast, and they were really great, and some people were very, very helpful. But, you know, there were people off the telly who were good actors in it to get the thing. And we walked into this restaurant, and he got a table. And as we walked down the restaurant, there was a table, and about 5 or 6 of our stars were all having dinner together. And we walked past with Rudolph Nureyev, and the faces of people were just amazing. And eventually we explained it. And again, he did the same. We had dinner, we had such a laugh, and there was no pressure. And the final part of this rambling anecdote is that 1982, I was very unemployed. I lived in Earl's Court in Redcliffe Square, and the only thing to do at the end of a day of unemployment and having had your baked potato that you were was to go cruising. And the Coleherne pub, any gay listeners will know the Coleherne pub, and the streets around it is a sort of cruising block. So I'd wait till like 10:30, end of news at 10. I think, right, no, go out. And I shared the flat with a South African actor. It was a little one-bedroom flat. Some friends of his and a friend of mine owned it. So we both had like a little bed sitting room, and we shared the kitchen and the bathroom.
Right.
A very nice flat in Westgate Terrace. And I go cruising, and one night I've been out cruising, and it's quite cold, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, bugger this, go home. And then I sort of see a figure, and I think, no, that isn't, is he? And in this leather coat with the famous sort of Breton cap that he wore, and he walked past and he looked, and then he went, hey, actor. And I went, hello, hi. And we stood chatting, and I went, it's cold. I live just down the street. Would you like tea? Or yeah. So we walked back, and my flatmate and I used to have this system that if we had picked somebody up or whatever, you'd have a towel on your door. You know, you'd hang a towel. So I came in, and PJ didn't have a towel on his door, and his door was open, and the lights were on, so he was obviously watching telly. So I came in, and he obviously heard the door go, and he obviously waited a bit to hear whether I went into my bedroom and closed the door, which I didn't because I went in the kitchen. So he came round and then just stood in the doorway, and he was very cultured and very South African posh, and his English parents brought out of South Africa. Right. And I just went, oh, hi, PJ, this is Rudolph Nureyev. Rudolph, this is PJ. PJ almost curtsied. And this bizarre... And he stayed for an hour, and he had his cup of tea.
Was there any hint of, is tea going to lead on to a towel on the door, or it was just a nice time?
No. I mean, God, it would have been amazing. Those muscles, those legs, God. But you'd get crushed. But, you know, that was the funny thing, there wasn't. And he left and went into the night. And I think he died a couple of years after that. He died of AIDS, and he died a couple of years later. But it was just this wonderful story that touched by greatness. And incidentally, and only at the end of it, when you think, oh, that's 3 times now, and you think, you know, it built up over that early stage. But it was all about theatre when we left drama school. Telly wasn't really an option. I had done bits of telly. John McGregor's wife, because I got my equity card. That's where we started this.
Yeah, I don't know when they started to, because now you get it when you graduate drama school, but it must not have always been like that.
No, you could apply for a provisional card, but you had to get contracts. So lots of my year had done ventriloquist acts or sword swallowing in the local pub.
Right.
To get, and if you had so many contracts, you could go. And of course, Manchester had an equity office. So I sent in my form for a week's work with the London Festival Ballet. And then after 3 months, I hadn't heard anything. So I wrote to them again, and they rang up, or I had to ring them. I remember being on a payphone, and they went, "What was it?" And I said, "It's a week work with the London Festival Ballet." And they went, "Okay, well, give us your details." And then I was at home, and it was Easter, and a letter arrived at home in Yorkshire, because I would use that as my postal address for obviously permanent things. And I remember my mother bringing the mail up to my bedroom. I was having a sort of slobby holiday lie-in, and there was my equity card in a red wallet, my provisional equity card, the key to work. And Rob, who was in my year and who I shared a house with, he'd been a supernumerary in the crowd. So he then applied, and instantly he got a reply going, "This work does not qualify you for equity membership." So I was sort of illegal for many years. But it did mean that during drama school, I got little stabs of television and got called in. So I did, my first ever thing was I played a choreographer in The XYY Man, which was a crime series that Granada did. And for some reason, there was a choreographer and 3 dancers rehearsing in a bank. I don't know why. So I played the choreographer, which had about 2 lines. And then I also did a wonderful thing called Gossip from the Forest, which was about the signing of the armistice at the end of the First World War. And they built these railway carriages up on Alderley Edge. And I got to sit in a Rolls Royce, a beautiful vintage Rolls Royce, with about 50 extras behind me, marching as my car drove up a hill to stop at a roadblock. And they hosed us down because it was in the rain, and I had to get out, and I had like 2 lines at the roadblock. But all these wonderful English actors were in it. It was directed by Brian Gibson, who was a very in director at the time. And there were lovely actors, and I had about 6 days filming, and I thought, but it was funny that it was a world I was thinking, yeah, but this is not what I'm training for rep. I'm going to rep. And then I hadn't got a job, and it was the last week of drama school, and we were doing the last night parties and, you know, all saying goodbye. And Mr. Sexy Hair, Red Velvet Jacket, E-Type Jaguar pulled up in the car park, and I was walking across the car park, and Michael yelled and went, "Here, now." And he gave me an envelope, and he said, "Just read this before you go inside." And I went, "Okay." And I thought, obviously he's, you know, proposing marriage to me and wants to take me away to Purley or wherever his parents live. They did live in Purley, actually. And it was a letter offering me The Winter's Tale, which was going to tour Europe for 6 weeks, rehearse in London for 4 or 5 weeks, toured Oxford, Cardiff, then we did a 5-week British Council tour, then it came back to Manchester, re-rehearsed into the round, and then played 6 weeks at the Royal Exchange. So it took me from August to, I think, December the 7th. And I had to ring up, and it was £68 a week. And I was one step above acting ASM. So there were 2 boys in it who it was their first job and they were acting ASMs. And then there was me.
Right.
So I didn't have to do the ASMing. But And that was the first job. And from there, we were all looking to do theatre.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like then, other than... It was the 80s when you got out of drama school, you said?
78.
78. So when you're not acting, you're cruising, are you working alongside that? What is it like to be a sort of jobbing actor in the 80s? What else were you
Well, we had government sponsorship because we had the dole.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you could sign on the dole and you could get your rent paid. Now, my rent at that stage was £4.95 a week for 2 rooms.
In Earl's Court?
No, in Earl's Court it had gone up when I moved to London, that was later. So that was early
£7
'80s.
instead.
It was still something ridiculous, but it was paid by my dole. So I would go to, walk through Old Brompton Cemetery to the dole office twice a week, twice a month, sign on, and I'd get my dole and my rent money. And I was just really shit at anything else. I tried. Well, the first time I was out of work was in Manchester, and I went and ended up doing telephone sales. And we were given telephone directories, so we told to find the numbers. We weren't given a list of contacts. And it was for selling advertising space in something like the Railwayman's Journal.
Right.
And I lasted about 30 minutes, and then they weren't actually monitoring what your call was. They were just monitoring how long you were on the phone. So they weren't listening in on your calls. So there was a thing you could do then called dial-a-disc,
Right.
where you could dial up, and then changing the last digit, 1, 2, 3, you could hear one of the top 10 records of the time. So I was dialing dial-a-disc, and then I lied at lunchtime and said, "I'm really sorry. My agents told me that I have an interview this afternoon in Leeds, so I have to go." I didn't have an agent, and I don't know how they thought I got hold of my agent, or my agent had got hold of me in the morning. But I just couldn't do it. So I used to survive badly on getting my rent and the dole. And I did a bit in wine bars in London, which was a bit easier when I came to London. But the good thing was that in the main, for the first, I went from rep to rep. So I went Manchester, and then I had 3-4 months out in which I did 2 or 3 tellies. And in those days, a telly paid enough money that you didn't work for like 3 months. So I did a little bit in Brideshead Revisited for Granada, and I did a pilot for a kids thing called The Mersey Pirate.
I tried to look it up yesterday. I was scrolling through your IMDb, and it was for the Merseyside ferries.
Yeah, funnily enough, on the news this weekend was about the Royal Iris ferry across the Mersey being retired, and we did it on the Royal Iris. And the idea was that it was a pirate television station that had come on, taken over ITV for 3 hours on a Saturday morning live from a boat. And we did a pilot, and there were 4 actors. One of them was Amanda Burton, who went on to great things, Waking the Dead and all that stuff. There were 4 actors, and then there were a couple of comedians, Frank Carson and Dougie Brown. There was a chef,
Right.
and it was all. And we rehearsed it on a Friday afternoon, and then on a Saturday morning, at like 8:30, they put 50 kids on the boat, and then we set sail at 9, and we went live on air at 10 o'clock till 12:30 with interesting, fun items. And we did a pilot program, and we did 2 programs, and then the ITV strike came along, which was 1979, and that closed ITV down for about 5 months.
Right.
So we were off the air, and that it was never picked up and never moved anywhere. But yeah, I remember being sick over the side. And one of the reasons the ITV strike was there was because they were using new cameras which were mobile and that you could hold, so it didn't need trackers, and the cameras weren't on big dollies with cable pushers, and so people were going to be out of work.
Sure.
So Bectu and unions were saying no. But it did mean that on a boat you could be stood there waiting to start an item, and there was nothing in front of you.
Right.
And somebody be counting down, going 5, 4, 3, and you get to 2, and about 10 yards down the boat, you'd see a man with a box on his shoulder come out of a doorway, running towards you. And that was the cameraman who'd been doing a previous item in the cabin, and she'd be going 2, 1, and you'd start, and the camera would be, 20 feet away from you, and you'd be going, "Hi, we're up on deck now." And my children's TV persona, which was reinvigorated in about 1982 by the BBC in the kids' programme Jigsaw.
Which was?
Jigsaw was BBC One, before Blue Peter, on Mondays, and it was about a little jigsaw piece, and presenters, one of whom was Janet Ellis, who's a great friend of mine, Sophie Ellis-Bextor's mum, and the mime artist Adrian Headley. And then Jig had a voice, and I was, 82, I was doing something in London in the theatre, but I was asked to go and interview, and they tested my voice, and you had to be able to also do lots of sketches. So I could do funny voices and things in sketches, which was great. But then I spent most of my studio day in a glass box with the puppet operator in front of me, with a cut-out jigsaw piece with his mouth moving. It was all done on CSO, on colour separation overlay, which is the early precursor of green screen. But I would be in a glass box watching Janet and Adrian talk to a spot, and that spot would be the jigsaw piece that was being put in. And "Hello, Janet. Hello, Adrian. Whoa, we're starting with a vowel. What's the jig word then, Janet?" And then we'd have these sketches to it was the sort of thing the BBC did best.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it was telly started at 4:00 in those days. So if you were at home having an out of work, you weren't watching Holmes Under the Hammer at 10:30. You were waiting for telly to start at 4:15. And that was just about when Channel 4 started, so a lot of people would click onto Countdown.
Right.
But if you weren't clicking onto Countdown or whatever, you'd be waiting for... Lots of actors used to watch Blue Peter and kids' telly. Grange Hill was watched by most of Equity, I think. So if you were in Jigsaw, bouncing about, playing penguins and all sorts of things, people watched you. So I was in this for one series, and... I think I got more feedback on it than I'd ever had on a job in my life. And it was the first time I had a regular paycheck from TV, which was great.
So what was the term is breakout role. When did you feel like you'd made it as an actor?
Oh, God. That we're talking about them, me being 23, and that didn't happen till I was 50.
Oh, really?
No.
What did you think it was? Was it Doctor Who?
No.
Coming from the Blue Hoods?
No. The breakout role has to be Sophie's dad in Peep Show, and I was 50 years of age.
Still what you're most recognised for in the street. Yeah. It's great.
You're Sophie's dad. You're Sophie's dad. I had a day the other day around here. I don't know why. And it was brilliant, actually, the other day. I had to go to the parcel office, and I walked in, and the girl, really lovely girl, dealing with my parcel problems, went, "You're on the telly, aren't you?" Which is always a question that you go, "Well, I am, yeah, but I don't want to." So, and I went, "Yeah," and I thought it was going to be, and she went, "Oh, I love Full Monty," and I was so thrilled that it wasn't Peep Show, because Full Monty, the Disney series, is now on ITVX, so more people are watching it. It came out a couple of years ago. But then twice later, I went to collect a broom at Screwfix. My life is so exciting. And the young guy brought the broom out and dropped the broom and went, "You're Sophie's dad." And and then he picked the broom up and came over, "Can I have a photo?" I went, yeah, lose the broom. And then I went to our lovely cafe down the road, the Magpies, and my partner was away on Saturday doing a car show. So I was on my own, playing with my phone, had my lovely breakfast. And then the table next to me got up and left, and the guy just got me, "Can I just say, I love your outfit, and you are my favourite character in Peep Show, Sophie's dad." I went, so, yeah, that's the thing that people know, and I don't mind it. I love it. It's great.
Going to that Peep Show quiz was quite an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
Was it at the start? I don't remember if it was you or the presenter that asked how many times had people seen the show. And I've seen it a couple of times, and I thought I was going to be ready for it. And then the first question was, what happened in episode 3, series 1, minute 4? And everyone started writing, and I was like, I've got no idea
what collar size is Jeff on his wedding day? Yeah.
And people just starstruck by you hosting this thing. I keep telling people about it because different teams travel around the UK to do the same quiz multiple times. And they're like, no, we've already won first and third place, so tonight we're trying to get second. And it's kind of insane how...
There are people who watch Peep Show and they watch an episode of it every day. And when they get to the end of the 9 series and the 54 episodes, they just start back at series 1, episode 1. And that's wonderful. I think it's just because it's about... In a way, it's almost Shakespearean because it's about the banal thing of 2 guys who share a flat who really can't do life.
The lack of communication between them as well.
Yeah, and the way that people try and impress other people by creating, shared the El Dude brothers and all that and everything. And I think that's what its great success is. I mean, it's amazing that Peep Show, and I didn't join till series 4, but Peep Show started in the same week as Little Britain with Matt Lucas and David Walliams. You can't show that now.
No, they've taken it off BBC. You can find it online illegally, but I understand why that's the case. I think Peep Show's... It's got a couple of moments.
I think there's one thing that's been amended for it being on iPlayer or Channel 4
sort of
player
retconned or removed.
Yeah, but no, it's there, and it's sort of universal, and it appeals to, there are Peep Show fans now coming up who, the first night my first episode went out, I thought it all was for like people in their 20s and 30s, sort of same age as Mark and Jeremy, and the next day, my then partner and I, my husband, we were in Brighton. And we'd finished the day being on the pier doing things. We'd won some fluffy dragons on Dolphin Derby, which I had put into the 2 pockets in my cargo pants. And then, so I've got a purple dragon in one, an orange dragon in the other. And then we thought, oh, look, Spider-Man's on, 6:20. Should we go? So, yeah, we'll do that. So we went into the foyer, we bought our tickets and got our popcorn and Maltesers. And then I need to go to the loo. And I walked across the foyer and I was aware of a group of teenagers just looking at me and thinking, and then it's dragons. It's because I'm a 50-year-old man and I've got a purple dragon coming out of one pocket and an orange dragon. And that's not a euphemism. But I went to the loo and then I came out of the loo and then this one boy broke away, which in retrospect is a very brave thing to do, and just came up to me and went, sorry, are you Sophie's dad from Peep Show? I think he might have said, are you Sophie's dad at first? And I didn't really know what he meant. But then he said Peep Show. And I went, yes, because it had been on last night.
Yeah.
And then the whole crowd came over. And my partner looked over and said, you could just see me in the middle of this crowd of people who, at that stage, mainly wanted... autographs. We were just ahead of selfies.
Was it the first episode? Was when you firebombed the farm, right?
I burned the barn.
Yeah, you burned the barn.
Dan's barn.
Barn. Yeah, barn.
The most expensive stunt Peep Show ever did.
I know. It's such a meme to this day. Was it weird going immediately to that place where people would recognise you? Was that a strange twist?
I didn't, yeah. And also at that stage, I had done 2 episodes and I thought that was it. So I did episode 1 and then episode 6 of series 4, The Barn, Sophie's Parents and Sophie's Wedding. And that was nice and it was really good. And it was lovely that people reacted to it and that was fine. And I didn't think it would go on, but it stayed as part of my life for 10 years. So, yeah.
It was the only show... People usually talk about The Office like this, the original Office with Ricky Gervais, where they say they can't watch it because it makes them feel so awkward and uncomfortable. And like every TV show I watch, I'll sort of binge it. I used to binge Peep Show, and I think it was probably your episode because it's just everyone just ripping Mark to shreds, including you, David Mitchell. And I would go to the shops afterwards, and because the show is all about them sort of walking around and you hear their thoughts inside of their head, I was in Tesco and I just felt David Mitchell's voice in my head and people sort of looking at me, and I was like, I had to come home. I couldn't finish my shop. I think I bought an apple and I didn't get anything else. And I texted my flatmates at the time, this was in drama school, and I was like, I can't, I need to take a break from Peep Show because it just makes me feel so, I loved it. I still love it, but it just makes me feel so.
It's so brilliant.
Awkward.
It's funny you mentioned Ricky Gervais because I only discovered this as I was researching for my book. After series 3, it was cancelled. And there were lots of people saying, no, but Channel 4 just didn't get it.
Right.
And Ricky Gervais, who did have The Office going out at that time, Ricky Gervais wrote to Channel 4 to say, this is the greatest comedy. You can't not do this. And so evidently he played a key part in getting it recommissioned. And then it was recommissioned for Series 4, which was produced by the brilliant Robert Popper, who went on to do Friday Night Dinner and things. And Series 4 won a BAFTA. And then they commissioned 5 and 6 together.
Okay, I found this on the web.
Oh,
The spell went off.
hello.
Check it out.
Interesting. Wonder what it was looking up.
I bet it was looking up me, probably, or something about...
All good things.
I hope so. Never know. It's very funny when you get Google alerts.
I don't get them. My phone's on mute and black and white.
No, but I get, but you know, Google alerts if you appear in an article or something, and it brings up your name. And there are a couple of other people called Paul Clayton. One is an American. I don't know what he is. Whether he's he seems to be a bit of a guru.
Yeah, when I was YouTubing you yesterday, because I was looking up clips from things I hadn't seen you, and I was looking up EastEnders, and the news on that was quite fun because it was Peep Show actor turns to drag artist. And,
I know, dreadful.
Yeah, it must feel strange because people have such an idea of who you are when they come and meet you. They must think that you're Sophie's dad. Do you feel like you have to put on a sort of version of yourself when you meet people in the street?
No. What I love, I did an article, it had a really good title. Oh, that's it, Queer and Now, for Attitude last year, I think it was. And I did it with the lovely James Boone from Bridgerton, and he's 30, a very good actor. And it was about two people in the same profession. I don't know whether they've done any more. It's going to be a series. But it was about two people from the same profession talking about their profession, but different generations. And... we chatted about, all of that thing about, he said, because I said, like, I go to Peep Show quizzes, but I don't wear my barber jacket or my flat cap, which I have for doing, if people do want cameo videos. Have you got a friend who's got a birthday or a wedding coming up? Yes. Check out Sophie's Dad on Cameo. Reasonably priced. But I think they think that that's me, and I turn up, in my trainers and my Stussy and whatever. And we were talking about, I said, I wonder whether they sometimes feel disappointed. And James went, no, I think that's brilliant because they go with Sophie's Dad in their heads and they get something else. They get this added thing of who you really are. Because, of course, Sophie's Dad is one of the most iconic homophobes on television. And I have never had a problem with letting people know that I am a gay man. I've never been ashamed in any way to own up to it. I have never retired from the idea of owning up to it. But I think lately, as I've grown older, I realise that rather than just saying, well, I'm happy with it and that's fine, everybody else has to be happy with it, I do realise that there is a way to stand up and say that now. And I think that's key. And part of that was EastEnders as well. But I think they're probably, sometimes I think it comes as a shock to some of the Peep Show crowd. and that they don't think, but they love it. I mean, but they really love it, and which is really great. And
I feel like it's a thing now where actors need to. It's like if they cast an Irish actor, they want to a character. They want to cast an Irish actor. Nowadays, they don't want people playing roles that they aren't literally. I remember we took that play Raw Sex Appeal to the Fringe a few years ago, and I went to a sort of mingling network night, the first night with casting directors and things like that, reviewers. And a young woman asked me, why do you have the right to do this play? And it's a comedy about incels. And I was like, well, incels aren't going to write any plays about toxic masculinity, so do you not think it's an important story that needs to be told and more people can learn about it? And she was like, yeah, that's a fair point. But she sort of put me on the spot and is like, well, if you're not a toxic man, why should you be able to write about toxic men?
I think sometimes we need people to look at us from afar. So some of the great performances, John Hurt in The Naked Civil Servant, and some great performances of gay men have been performed by straight, whatever these labels mean, actors. And perhaps they look at us and are observing, just the same as I might look at a straight man and see patterns of behaviour that I think, well, I don't think I'd do that because I don't feel like, but I can show that. I can try and filter that through my lens. I don't think we all have to go out and murder somebody in order to get a job in, several Shakespeare plays.
I remember there was a play in drama school. It was in my third year. It's called Anatomy of a Suicide, and there was a woman in my year who was playing one of the lead parts was a heroin addict. And at the time, I was partying and doing lots of things in school with these people, and she turned around and she was like, because I was the person who she closely related to in that regard, and she was like, I think maybe I want to try heroin before this role. And she asked if I wanted to do it with her. And I thought about it because I had this mindset at the time, still partly, but not as extreme, that you should experience a lot of different things in life. And I was like, do I want to try it once? And I turned around to her, thought about it for about a week. And I said, do you think the writer, I think it might be Carol Churchill, no, Alice Birch, that's it. I said, do you think Alice Birch needed to do heroin to write this part? And she said no. And I was like, right, well then that's your answer, isn't it? And as far as I know, she didn't go away and do heroin. But
That's very funny you mentioned Carol Churchill, because actually it was a Carol Churchill play, I think, that made me did go and try something which did change my life for play a part. I did Cloud 9 at Leicester Haymarket. Yeah. And in the first half, I played Joshua the Black Servant, which is played with a black mask, but played by a white actor. My face is black, but oh, my soul is white, he says at one point.
You've blacked up quite a few times for
I
roles.
have, yes. And the second act, I played Jerry, who's the sort of gay lover of the guy in the play, but he's a bit of a freewheeler. And there's a brilliant monologue, which everybody used to do auditions, about getting a blowjob on the train from Victoria to Clapham Junction, which is 8 minutes, and it's just enough time. And particularly that they used to have those trains that didn't have corridors with compartments, so you'd wait till the last minute, look who it was, hop in, get down on their knees, they'd do it. And then it's very funny, and he talks about, it's finished, you're waiting to get there, and you really don't want to find out that they live in Penge and their aunt's a librarian. And so I did this play, and I had just done a piece of work in a play called Philomena, which is by Eduardo de Filippo, which is about 3 boys trying to find out who their father is, and knowing their mother is Philomena, but only one of them has this guy. She's living with Don Domenico as her father. I'm adopted, and I've never had any massive urges to find my real parents, but this play made that resonant about this thing about. So I'd done that, and it'd been a really nice piece of work, and I'd had nice reviews in the main. And then we were doing Cloud 9. So I'm doing this, and the first act was a bit technical doing this Joshua, but the second act doing Jerry, I think I had my hair permed, I got some cowboy boots, some tight jeans, but it just didn't ring true. And there was a wonderful actor who we lost quite early on to AIDS called Geoffrey Burridge, who was very attractive, and everybody wanted to shag Jeffrey. And he was talking, and he said, and I was saying, it's just this whole thing about, like doing this on a train. I wouldn't do that. I mean, my sex life was intermittent, to say the extreme. And he took me to a gay club in Leicester, and he said, we ain't leaving until you pick somebody up. And I picked somebody up, and we went back. Not anybody particularly it was just who could I pick up.
Sure.
And there was one. So went back to, I don't know where we went back to. We didn't have mobile phones with maps and things in those days. We went somewhere. And so I am in the back bedroom of a flat or something in a council estate in Leicester, and I did the deed. And then I'm lying there but thinking, I can't stay here.
Yeah.
I can't stay here. So I left, put my clothes on and left. I didn't know where I was. I walked to a main road, and then I think I walked for about 3 hours to get back to where I was staying in Leicester. But actually, the thing of doing that sort of broke the duck, really, because then when I got back from that play, I moved into Westgate Terrace in Earl's Court, and then had the longest period of unemployment I've ever had, which was, I think, 9 months. But there was sex on the doorstep, and you just thought, right, well, I can't get any acting work, so I might as well get a shag. And for a long time, casual sex has been a very important part. I remember there was a theatre director who I loved a lot, and he used to say, it's all right for you gays, you can go out and do it, in a toilet and leave it and go. And I went, oh, I can't. And then I sort of could, and I did, and have done for a long time. And I'm very, very happy now with one person. I had a long relationship, which became a civil partnership for 25 years, and then I wasn't faithful in that.
Well, from what you told me, neither of you were.
No, but I realised I'd made a mistake. I'd got to the stage, I was 40, and I wanted cardigans and country lanes and walks, rather than just, every time I picked somebody up for sex, the minute sex was finished, I was getting the doilies out and the teapot and thinking, do you want to stay? And of course, no, they don't. I fucked you, I'm off, whatever. Sure. So this person came into my life, and I sort of thought that, and he was very, nice guy, about 18 years younger than me. But the sex was really shit from really quite early on.
Wasn't a red flag for you?
No, it wasn't happening. But I sort of thought perhaps this isn't what I want. Perhaps I do want, this will be fine, this will change. And after a while it didn't, and I thought, well, actually, of course, what I'd been doing and what I'd been portioning my life off before I met my ex-partner, my husband, was I'd been portioning it into, well, there are lots of good friends I have in my life, and there are lots of people I get to fuck. And perhaps I just ought to live with the fact that the two aren't going to meld up. And when I'd done that, that's when I met Richard. And but yes, it didn't work. So I just thought, that's fine, I can go and have sex elsewhere. And that's what I did. And I always had sex, and I never had a relationship. Always, but lots and lots of sex. And he did find out, and he was hurt, and I'm not proud of that. And eventually, when he found out the second time, I went, okay, right, fine. So I became celibate, and I was celibate for about 9 years. And at the end of that period...
Even in the marriage?
Mainly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We just didn't do it. We became sort of like best friends, brothers, really. But, yeah, it just... and as they say in Avenue Q, the internet is for porn. So, my desktop used to see a lot of action. But 8.5, 9 years. And then at the end of COVID, I found out that he had been sleeping with women for 6 years, and then he was in a relationship, and he'd realised he was in love. And I don't mind... I sort of didn't mind the fact that he'd been sleeping with other women, because he obviously felt he needed to have the sex. And I'm a great believer that we can all fall in love on any day with somebody. It's unexpected. It's a bit like,
Can't control it, yeah.
Yeah. But what I did mind was that he'd been having this relationship for 18 months, and he'd been bringing this person into my life in that this was a woman, they'd been brought to dinner with me, and when we'd been given tickets to go for things, she'd been there. So that was the lying element that made me go. And I did then go back to casual encounters, because I was in my mid-60s and I thought, God, nobody's going to want me. And I was surprised. I had to hide my photo.
What, cruising turned to Grindr?
Yeah. The world of the swipe right. And then I would always wait and not send my photo till I got theirs, which is very selfish and horrible. And then if I liked them, I would send my photo. But then sometimes people would come back going, oh, I know, you're off the telly. And then I would just lie and pretend to be catfishing and go like, oh, no, I'm just using his photo and not take it anywhere, because I was really desperate that I didn't want to get... It's a whole new world when you get to people who, well, I want to fuck Sophie's dad. I want to be fucked by Sophie's dad.
So what, you were getting dick pics and just sending a headshot?
Yeah. I wasn't. Yes, I would never send any dick pics. No. I can't see. Also, a person's more than a penis, aren't they? So
Well, maybe not for younger men.
Well, I don't know, but it's what A penis has never attracted me without it being attached to the person who it's attached to. So that's the thing. But I quickly realised, it took me about a year, and then I was thinking, this isn't right. This doesn't work. It wasn't difficult to get these encounters this time, and I think that's what made me think that it wasn't right. And then I was very lucky in that somebody clicked on me, and he had no idea who I was, and we FaceTimed, and this was like a normal dating process. I was really looking forward to him being on FaceTime and talking. And then he came over and we went to the Ivy for dinner. And that was it now. And yeah, he's my life. It's entirely by the by that he happens to be 6'4", a gorgeous Canadian who has the soul of an angel, but that helps.
What was it like? Because I feel like this is a thing that people are talking about now. A lot of marriages broke up in COVID because it's that thing of people actually had to spend time with each other and then realised they didn't like each other.
Yeah.
So growing up, wanting jumpers and country walks, and what was it like for you initially to realise that this maybe rest of your life plan that you had mapped out changed, and then moving into the world of, dating apps, and was that quite a shift?
I think so. I had done, it wasn't Grindr, it was Gaydar originally when I'd been married and done that. But I think it was just the fact that, I think COVID, we all rallied round, and I remember the beginning of it. My partner had a very difficult job because he had to run a company. He was CEO of a company, so he was running that from the dining room table, and I had an office in our home because obviously I'm a freelancer anyway. And I was looked after very well by a client who put me on a retainer and started creating virtual meetings and projects for them. But of course, my partner was somebody who hadn't worked virtually, and I think he had a very hard time because ultimately then they had to start letting people go and dealing with all that, and I'm sure it must have been very stressful. And because we'd settled into this companionship, I probably wasn't what he needed. He probably needed more love. And I think that one of the things that happened when we broke up was that I would have accepted him saying, I'm really sorry, I just fell in love with somebody else. But he didn't. He found a lot of reasons to blame me. He said, you're the reason for this, and some more unkind things. And I just thought, no, that's not right, you know. So that was difficult. And also it was that thing, I was 65, and that's the age that everybody retired when I was a kid. You know, you got your pension. And I thought, this is my future. Our flat together and the other properties we had 3 properties, and this is my curve. And it's all gone, and I'm retirement age. And then the most bizarre thing happened. I was sent a script, which was 2 gay men whose relationship was falling apart. I didn't know what it was for. And I was asked to do a self-tape. And the only person I could do a self-tape with was the person who... because I did agree that we would stay together after a lot of tears and tantrums. I said we'd see how it worked. I think the term is a throuple. He wanted to have a throuple. Yes, well... but we did this self-tape about this couple, a scene where they're questioning their relationship. And that went off, and I thought, how typical. You know, now my work is getting at me for breaking up relationships. And then they came back, and my agent said, so they're going to send you some more scenes, and they can tell you now, but you obviously signed NDA, that this is the full Monty for Disney, and it's 25 years later, so it's the original 6 boys, but what's happened to them now as men in their 50s and 60s. And Lomper, played by the wonderful Steve Hewison, has been married for 22 years to this person called Dennis. And Dennis is from Sheffield, which I can claim authenticity. None of the original Monty boys are from Sheffield. Dennis is gay, Dennis is proud, Dennis is loyal, Dennis is witty, Dennis is acidic, Dennis is short-tempered. He's lots of things that are me, but which I'd never really done before. And the brilliance of the casting director, Catherine Willis, whose husband is from Rotherham, and we'd worked together on things at the Actors Centre, and she's a joy. But she had gone in and said, there's one actor to play this part. And I think I don't think anybody had even said, oh no, that's Sophie's dad. I think they just, who is he? And of course, the most prolific thing you could find on television is a man in a barber jacket and a flat cap going, you know, I may be a homophobe, Jeremy, but I'm no badger baiter, which is not really qualifying dialogue or behaviour for playing, you know, have you got any more lettuce? She wants a big bap. And but thanks to the brilliance of Catherine and a lovely director called Andrew Chaplin, I did a lot of self-tapes, and Disney said yes. And I did that job, which sort of gave me my life back because it empowered me. It was the biggest, most financially rewarding job I'd ever done in my career. So at 65, when I just thought I'd been knocked out of the ring, there I was, 9 months filming, with brilliant actors who I admired, and it was funny enough, having got that, that's when I thought, right, I want a divorce now. I'm not taking any second string on that. I can do this. I've waited all these years to be in a big series like this, and look, it's happened at the age of 65. So that means I can deal with other things. So thank you very much.
It must have helped to get that distance as well, to be away filming on set with different people who I imagine were quite lovely. And
Disney were very good because my other half wouldn't move out of our house. So I was getting back and we were still sharing a bed, and I was fine. But then when he wanted to, he was going off to Birmingham, where we had another flat where he worked, and his new partner was going to stay with him. And he'd come back and go, I'm coming back, but I won't be at home this weekend. And I found all that difficult, but Disney were great because I could go like, I'm filming Friday and I'm filming Monday, and nope, it's fine. We'll book the hotel for you. You stay the weekend.
Great.
So that was it was empowering in lots of ways, and it led to me buying the boat.
Yeah. What was the decision there?
Well, we couldn't settle our financial deals by mediation. We tried. I'm not going to go into details. And then that meant we had to go to lawyers. So I couldn't capitalise on any money out of any of our property. And I had some savings. But then I was being very, very well paid by Disney. And I was on Zoopla, and this boat came up on the website. And I thought, oh, God, that's... And I came to see it, and it was May, and it was sunny, and I walked down the ramp. And this one, your boat, was for sale as well, which I didn't see because the estate agent didn't turn up. And I thought, that would be an adventure, wouldn't it? Because there's going to be a lot of sadness moving into a one-bedroom flat in a block somewhere near Croydon, which is probably as much as I can afford. And then I did my sums. I thought I could buy that boat outright.
Did you ever have any thoughts of moving into a boat before? It was just on Zoopla.
No. I'd been on we had 2 holidays during COVID on the Norfolk Broads on a cruiser, and I had previously in my life had 2 narrowboat holiday weekends. But I just loved the boat. And the very bizarre thing, of course, was, as it rips through your life, was, the first time I came to see it, Candy, who was part of the couple who owned the boat, and they had a little daughter, Candy and Charlie, and Candy went, oh, my husband's really disappointed that he's not here for you coming because he loves Peep Show. And I went, oh, right, okay. So I thought, right, that could be 10 grand off the price then. And then I did come and meet Charlie the next time, and he was a big Peep Show fan. I don't think I did get 10 grand off. I should have got more, the number of things we've corrected in the last couple of years. But I love it. I loved it. And it's been the best adventure. And, I'm speaking to the converted in talking to you, Tom, that the community, the sense of community here, the sense of, as freelancers, we don't have routine, but to live on a boat, you have to have bits of routine because there's maintenance and things to do. There are little chores. And I found that very settling. And even when I got to my first Christmas, which was going to be alone, and there were lots of people saying, "Oh, come and stay," and I'm thinking, "Oh God, I'm going to be the spectre at the feast, aren't I?" Sitting, look at the gay divorcee at the end of the table. And I went to France for like 3 days to see some very good friends because they do it very differently in France. And the meals on Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day, they all just go to each other's for drinks. So. But it really helped, that change, and it became the nicest place. And then it's been the nicest place to develop a new relationship with somebody, and we both love it as our home.
It's one of the nicest things about the boating community is we've talked about this before, but when you buy into a boat, you don't realise that you're buying into a community. It's almost like living in a cul-de-sac or something is the best way I can describe it. And we saying we're taking the boat out in a couple of weeks' time. And we went up over the weekend. We walked the cut just to see, because we've never done a lock before. We've never driven outside of the marina, and you can just chat to anyone along the cut. And I don't envy the cruising lifestyle. I don't wish that we were travelling around every couple of weeks and going up to Manchester and Birmingham and back. But you can just chat to anyone in the boating community. It's a really lovely place. It's a shame that it's being bought out by massive investment companies that just want to rinse everyone for every penny that they possibly can. But it's a shame that it's...
I think that is the case. But then, if you look where we're lucky enough to live in central London, but the community and the sense of community was very, very restorative. And it was, and for the first couple of months, I think there was a month and a half I moved on, and then I was still filming in Manchester, so I was going away and coming back. And there was just one night, I remember, when I walked down the ramp, and I thought for the first time I just had that feeling of, oh, I'm home. I'm home. Which was great, Yeah,
it's a nice place to come back to. Bless you.
Thank you.
I want to bring it back because we haven't talked about the writing too much yet. I did speak to you before on the radio about that, but... obviously, My Lie, Your Lie is loosely inspired by your own circumstances, minus the murder.
Yeah, people keep saying, I've just got to the bit where you're on the Isle of Wight. And I went, it's not me. But it is, it is based on, I think, the only one of the three. So there's The Punishment, which was my first novel, The Hoax, and My Lie, Your Lie. The Punishment's based on an encounter with a man who turns out to have a criminal profession, and that was based on truth.
Right.
And then I developed it where it might go. And My Lie, Your Lie is about a gay couple who separate, but there is a secret that binds them together, but perhaps all is not what it seems. So that obviously was a little bit of final expurgation of the process I've gone through in the last 3 or 4 years. But it is fictional.
So when did the writing come into play? When did you start writing, and why did you decide to? Because most actors, I know actors will write books that make it to the front of Waterstones and it's all about their life and stuff, but you write fiction, which is, do you find that similar to acting, getting into a character, or is it quite a different thing?
I like that because the way that I write, I talk about my writing, but I don't write, I talk. So my saving grace is voice-activated software and the ability of that. And I can't remember when, but very early on, a good 25 years ago now, there was a program called Simply Speaking by Lotus IBM. And I was demonstrating this with the lovely Janet Ellis. We were doing a send-up of a morning Richard and Judy television show. And one of the products we were doing was Simply Speaking. And we were doing it at a trade show at Heathrow. And this lovely woman called Pam, Pam Mills, I later found out her name was, in fact, recently somebody reminded me. And Pam was from Liverpool. But when she was training, she was great. You had to train these programs for hours. So all through the rehearsal, she sat in the corner of the room going, "The quick brown fox ran over the lazy hyena," or whatever, and doing all this. And then she'd come up and then she'd speak to it. And we had a big screen on the set behind us, which would show what she was typing. It was fab. God, this is amazing, isn't it? And then Saturday morning, the first show, 10 o'clock, packed out, 150 people. Trade show, they've all got in with their lanyards and their chinos, and I hand over and I'm going to go, well, I'm handing over to Janet and Pam to show us something that I found really amazing. And I went to sit on a sofa on the side of the stage and watch, and Janet Ellis, who is a supreme television presenter but is also a brilliant actress and improviser, and she was playing a sort of parody of a morning TV presenter, went over and went, "Hello, Pam, you're going to show us." And they chatted, and she said, "Right, let's see it in action." And Pam clicked on her headset, clicked a few keys on the keyboard. We all held our breath, and Pam spoke to the computer. Now, Pam had been training this computer for 2 days on site in her lovely Liverpool Scouse accent. But like a lot of women from the north, or a lot of women from all over, perhaps, and men, but particularly my mum had one. My mum would talk in the shop, and she was from Yorkshire, Florence, and she was great. But when the big black Bakelite telephone rang in the room, my mother would pick it up and go, "Hello, Rotherham 850250, very hyacinth bouquet." And so she had a telephone voice. And of course, Pam suddenly found herself, she'd got a nice 2-piece suit on for this demonstration day. And there were 150 people watching her. So Pam clicked her headset on and spoke to the computer. And she said, "Hello, I'm Pam, and I'm going to talk to you about Lotus Simply Speaking, the voice-activated software that enables you to talk to your computer." And her voice was obviously slightly different because on screen behind us appeared the phrase "anti-Semitic Nazis at Tesco." And I looked up, and I was very unprofessional, and picked up a cushion on the sofa and stuffed my face into it. And I have to say, to this day, I remember Janet Ellis just turning around looking at it, and then she looked back at Pam and she just went, "I don't think that's quite what you said, is it, Pam?" And Pam was distraught and pressing buttons. And Janet, years of Blue Peter, giving her a great training, went, "I think we'll come back to you a bit later, Pam. Paul, what are we going on to next?" And simply speaking, the demo bit the dust there and then. But I thought, what a brilliant idea. And of course it did come back, and it's brilliant. So the punishment I would probably be, because it was my first book, and I started it at a writing retreat in France at my friend's, I would sit at my computer and talk. But the hoax I wrote in COVID, because suddenly, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? Yes, I've got these projects, but what? So I did an online diploma in criminal psychology.
All right.
And I wrote the hoax on my hourly walk, and it was set in the park that I used to walk around in Beckenham every day. And then actually the marina's great. So when I was writing My Lie, Your Lie, I'd set off and just click my AirPods in and talk to my phone for 2 circuits of the marina, then come back, get my computer to transcribe it, and then I'll edit it and work it. But I love anything with a twist. I love Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. One of the most brilliant books I've ever read. I was in a CB series of one of her books, and she's a fabulous writer. But in Fingersmith, you read, it's about 100 pages, and then the last line of a particular chapter changes everything you have just read. I remember reading it about 1 a.m. and then going, oh my God, and having to carry on reading. So I like a twist. I'd like to think that in all 3 of my books there is a moment where you go, oh God. I love it when I get a note back from my editor going, well, I didn't see that coming. And I go, no, that's good.
So what was the inspiration in the first place to write your first book?
I had been commissioned to write 2 non-fiction books. So I wrote a book alongside my acting. We talked earlier about jobs. I have done a lot of corporate jobs, starting with role play. I started with difficult conversations with oncologists. And then I was given the chance to train as a facilitator doing that on a study called Talking Cancer. And that expanded into, through good fortune and meeting people, into directing. So I've been a theatre director, but there quite often isn't a creative director on a conference to literally tell people where to stand. So I was being booked as an actor, and then you go, when do we come on? And somebody, oh, I don't know. So I was then sold in as a corporate conference director. So I had done that a lot, and Nick Hearn Books, who are the backbone of books for actors and just the best publishers, said, I talked to them about, what about they've got a So You Want to Be a Musical Theatre Star, So You Want to Be a Director. I said, so what about So You Want to Be a Corporate Actor? And they went, yeah, okay. So they were brilliant because they guided me through that. I don't know how you write a book. And they guided me. I wrote in the second person. That series of books are all written as, you may want to do this, you will find, you will, which is a very good way to balance whether you're telling a third or first person story, and it makes you have contact. And therefore it was really good to talk to my computer, imagining I was talking to an actor, a young actor who didn't know anything about the corporate market, and going, what you will find when you approach your first role play is that you will think it's about the acting, and actually it's about what you say after. So that was really good. And off the back of that, I was asked to write The Working Actor. There'd been a book called The Job of Acting by Clive Swift, which came out when I left drama school in 1978, which was a little square book. And it was about paying your tax and dressing room etiquette and how to find digs and things. And I thought, it was a little Bible that we all had, how to, what happened when you went to do a television in a studio. It wasn't about telling you how to act. And I would never dream of telling anybody how to act. I don't think you can teach people to act. People can or they can't.
Try.
They do try, and they make lots of money out of it. But I think you can give people techniques that enable them to do it more efficiently. But it's mainly about the life, managing your life. So The Working Actor is about, it's designed to give you 6 weeks of a daily task, each of which can reap dividends in your career. Networking, email, etiquette, tax, resilience, And it's not just me, a lot of people contributed, and I interviewed lots of people. And so I'd written 2 books. I thought, that's really... But you know what I want to do? I want to write a book that I would read.
Sure.
I want to write something that... And I did have this particular encounter with a gentleman of the criminal persuasion way back in the 80s during that period out of work. And I tried to write it as a short story once. And it hadn't really worked. And part of the story is that the day after this happened, I went to a dinner party. Sandy Toksvig, Clive Carter were all there. And I told people about what had happened. And we had a big discussion about the morality of doing what had been proposed or not. And it was fascinating. So it always hung in my head. And I was on a writing course at friends of mine, Janie and Mike, have a beautiful house near Bordeaux where they run writing retreats. And a lovely woman called Jane Wenham Jones, who does, I suppose, what you call romance and chick lit. But she was gorgeous. And she just gave me exercises. And my first thing was a partnering exercise. And I was partnering with a woman who was an ex-CID officer from Liverpool. So she was asking questions about this. And I thought, God, suddenly I've got the beginning of this. So I think I came back with about 10,000 words. I thought I'd better finish this. And the reaction was really positive. And I thought, well, I've done that. And then, yeah, literally 3 months later, after it had been published, COVID came along. And I thought, right. And I read a story in a newspaper. And I thought, what would possess you to do that?
What was it?
It was a story about 2 women who were really good friends. And then there'd been some mess up on a holiday where one had not booked the EasyJet tickets for the other one. So she thought she was going on holiday. She'd taken the time off work. And then the other woman, like a week before the holiday, went, have you got your plane tickets? And she went, no, you were getting everything. And she said, no. I said, do you get the EasyJet tickets? I booked the hotels. And she went ballistic. So the woman who hadn't got the plane tickets and couldn't get tickets, and they were too expensive or whatever, she created this whole job. She created websites, email addresses, a job that she knew her mate would apply for, and got her mate to resign from her job on the prospect that she was going to get this new job.
Right.
And then when she'd resigned from her job, said, resign because I've had these emails and they're going to come to me. I'm starting next month. And then she said, no, you're not. It's me. And the thing in the paper was the court case and the result of the course about defrauding and dissembling or whatever it was. But I just thought, what would make you really... God... You know, to take somebody else's who had been a friend and then just to take their life apart. What would make you... That's a story. And I thought, that's the middle of a story. So my job as a writer is how do we get there and who are the people who get there?
Right.
And then where do you go from that having happened? So that's the hoax, really, about the hoax and the journey. And then my third book is I think I still thought I have in some way to process everything that happened in the breakdown of my relationship. I don't ever deny that I had a great role to play in it by my own behaviour in the relationship, and I think I needed to sort of expurgate that. But it is a friend of mine's reading it at the moment and being very complimentary. It's fictional, Adam. That didn't happen. Okay, there were no murders involved in me now being on this boat.
Sure. Would you ever write for television? Would you ever put yourself in a role?
Oh God.
Is there anything you want to play that you haven't played?
Yes, I do. But I don't know. I'm lazy. So there's learning all those lines. You know, that's the question. How do you learn the lines, isn't it? When anybody talks to you, do you get that? How do you know? The best question I've ever had was on that tour, that opening tour. And we used to have to go to little embassy receptions and cultural attaché receptions. And we had to go to one in Luxembourg. So we all popped on our little evening outfits that we were carrying in our touring suitcases, and I remember we walked across the bridge. There's a big valley in Luxembourg. We trooped like a school crocodile in diamante and silk, and into this gorgeous house. And there were all these people who were meeting the English actors, and you rather suspected they weren't really interested in us. And there was this woman talking, and there were three of us, the younger people in the company, talking to her. Hair piled up, massive earrings, probably more than I've ever earned in my career in these earrings. And she was just trying to ask, and we thought, oh, it's coming, isn't it? How do you learn that? And she went, there's always one thing I want to know about all of you actors. And you thought, here it comes, how do you learn your lines? And she went, don't you find that all this theatre breaks into your evenings terribly? And you know what? She's a bit right now at this stage in life. I was up for two sorts of things in the West End towards the end of last year, and the only thing I could think of was, do I want to give up my evenings? So I telly and film, going away, working. But the one thing on my list, I am a mad fan of Joe Orton. And I've directed The Ruffian on the Stair. Goodness knows how many times I've seen the plays. And I think I might be tempted to want to play Dr. Rance in What the Butler Saw. So it's all about the nature of madness. It's set in an asylum where, and the lovely thing about it is it's basically because somebody's trying to get his leg over and gets caught with somebody who he shouldn't. So he has them declared mad so that his wife doesn't believe. And Dr. Rance is then supposedly the highest psychiatrist in the land who arrives to start assessing whether people are mad or not. But what becomes very clear is that Dr. Rance is absolutely unhinged and has no moral compass whatsoever. And the dialogue is brilliant. It's Wildian. It's dialogue that you can't piss about with as an actor. I love that. In Peep Show, Sam and Jesse, and of course Jesse went on to do Succession. But you can't piss about with that dialogue. You can't do all that putting pauses. Young actors sometimes try and make the dialogue. They're worried the dialogue has to sound
correct.
Like a natural,
Right.
Whereas actually, when writers are writing, like the line we said earlier, I may be a homophobe, Jeremy, but I'm no badger baiter. You can't do, well, I may be a homophobe, Jeremy, but no, I am no, it's gone. And Wild is the same. These long lines,
Would you ever put it on?
I might, yes. I don't know whether I could bear to see somebody else do it. But I might. I did do The Ruffian on the Stair, the lovely Lucy Benjamin and Gary Webster and a very talented young actor called Alan Buchanan. We put it on the Fringe just before COVID. And that was a joy because of the language and watching actors explore it and get the confidence to do that. Because he writes, you have to, we've known each other a long time. We've shared the same cradle. Was that economy or malpractice? You can't piss about with a pause. If I have any success as an actor, it's that I've had some brilliant scripts. Peep Show is brilliant. I was in a sitcom called Him and Her by Stefan Golochevsky. That is, it's nectar on the page. Don't turn up, say the lines. I'm doing a project at the moment which NDAs forbid me from mentioning what it is, but just yesterday I was doing my first day's filming and somebody said, thank you for doing this, we're really grateful that you're doing this. I went, it's just a joy. I said, but it's the writing. I mean, I was sent this script and I read it out loud and I went, oh, just listen how that line sounds, it's perfect. Don't get in the way of it all. We did one shot yesterday afternoon and I did one take and the director went, that's it. And I went, no. And he went, would you want to do it again just to mess around? And I went, yeah. So we did it again. He said, no. The take is
the one take wonder.
And I went, oh, right. So great. But yes, I think something like that. But again, I don't want to do I'd just be uncommercial because I don't want to do 6 or 7 months. I might do 12 weeks. You know, I did a brilliant production of Kafka's Dick by Alan Bennett at Watford in about 2008, and I'd not done any theatre for about 7 years, and I thought, oh, this is brilliant. And I played Kafka's dad, who arrives at the end of the first act and then basically steals the second. So it was great. And a lovely director, Sarah S. Dale, and we rehearsed it. It was in Watford. Loved the rehearsals. I love being in a rehearsal room with actors. All that. Try it out. What I don't like talking about it. Acting comes from the word action. Do it, and then work out what you've done. But just leap in there and do it. Commit to it. Offer something. And then we did previews. Great. Then we opened. Fantastic. And then we had to do it for another 3 weeks. And I thought, if I ever see the Watford Ring Road again, it will be too soon.
Do you not get sick of when you go away filming for a long time? Is it not similar?
No, because it's different scenes every day. So you do that scene and then you dump it. And you might not have even learnt tomorrow's. I think that's what I like about the corporate work and the big events. And it's one chance to get it right. It's a one hit. So there's no, you know... I sometimes go to things in the West End now and watch them brilliantly, and I really still enjoy theatre. I went to see Mark Addy, my Monty colleague, in the brilliant The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and it's fabulous.
Yeah. Mila worked with him on The Rig.
Oh, yes, of course.
A day.
Yeah,
She said he was brilliant.
He's beautiful. And it's a great, and we went round to see him out in the dressing room, and he went, oh, yeah, 2-show day tomorrow. And I went, yeah, you see, that's it. The thought of you doing this, I mean, that's fab. That's brilliant. But, 8 times a week, twice on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So I think that's what puts me off.
Do you think, I know a lot of actors talk about the fact that they never feel like they retire because we love it so much, we just want to do it until we die. Do you think that's the case for you? Do you ever want to stop and just relax and travel, or do you see yourself acting for...
Well,
ever?
I think I see myself for a while, thank you to Mr. Trump. You know.
Why?
The world markets and my pension fund losing money.
Ah, okay.
But I think if I did retire and take my pension, which I'm going to, I'm not going to retire in the sense of stop. While ever I can remember the lines and while ever people want me to do it, I would like to do it. But I wouldn't like to be... I wouldn't like to be a problem for other actors. I wouldn't like to be, being a bit deaf and having to have words fed to me and getting in the way of everybody else doing their thing really well.
You had a line in EastEnders. I was watching it yesterday. It was something along those lines. It was, I need to go work in Soho because I've spent my pension. And
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that's all those wonderful people who were people of my age now. So I'm 70 coming up. And they survived. They were diagnosed with HIV in the 80s, and they were told you're going to die. So spend your pension, treat your friends, put your money. So they did, and they survived. And they've been survivors, and they're still here, and that's brilliant. But they're here without any provision for their old age. Over 60% of people with HIV now in Great Britain are over 60 years of age.
Sorry about all the cameras going off. It is a problem. We're working on it. Where can people see you? You've got a show that's NDA that you can't talk about, but what is coming out currently? What's new?
I think there's something called Secret Service coming out on ITVX, so it'll probably not work. But I think that comes out in, 2 weeks, April the 14th, which we shot last year. And there's what I call Clayton sprinkles. I think I'm in 2 episodes, key episodes, obviously.
It's what you seem to do best. I was watching Wolf Hall again. Because we spoke, what was it? I think a year ago, and you mentioned that you were in Wolf Hall, and it was well before I knew you that I watched that show, and then I went back and watched your scenes in it, and the beard, and a different beard between series 1 and 2.
No, actually, exactly the same
Was it
beard
actually?
10 years later.
It looked different.
They did ask me to grow one, and I went, but it'll be grey. And although it was 10 years between filming the series, between the action of the series, it's like 2 or 3 days. And then when I went for my fitting in my grey beard, and I looked like a sort of somebody who'd not got the part of Captain Birdseye, they went, look what we've got. And they took the fabulous makeup woman, took the box out, and there was my beard and my moustache and the wig that had all been preserved in this. So I don't know why, when 10 years ago they finished, they knew we were going to do book 3, which hadn't been written at that point. But yeah, no, lots. And then a wig for Bernard Ingham in Brian and Maggie, which was great fun. And
do you like the makeup? Do you like spending hours? And no.
That was the great thing about yesterday is I walked in and I was out in 3 minutes. I did have no makeup. I had a little bit of anti-shine, and she put a comb through my hair. And it does mean I've got to keep my hair a bit longer than I'd prefer it to be at the moment for the next 3 months. But it's a bit of a joy.
Great.
Wolf Hall was like an hour and 40 minutes every morning. And it's the difference between your car coming at 6 or your car coming at 5, and it's why get on with your makeup artist, That's the thing. Always be nice to make it, because you're going to see them at a very early time of day.
Yeah. Working with all these big names, do you ever get starstruck? Have you ever been?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Robbie Carlyle, I think he's the most brilliant actor. We had a very big bromance on Full Monty. And yesterday, I was working with an actor who was older than me, and we were introduced properly. I'd seen him at the read-through, and it was very sweet, because he went, I said, I'm fangirling because I'm a really big fan. And he went, well, I'm a very big fan of you after that read-through. And I went, oh, that's very kind, But and we had lunch together, and it was lovely. It was really lovely. But sometimes you want to go. They're really lucky, isn't it? Go to a day at work and then meet your heroes. So and I think if I stopped doing that, it'd stop being,
exciting.
Yeah, the thing that sometimes worries me is that you get younger actors who've done great things, because people seem to do bigger things on telly and Netflix early on these days, and then I don't know who they are, because I don't watch an awful lot of things. So it's that thing about, evidently you've been in 8 series of Game of Thrones. How lovely.
Yeah, it must be quite nice when you don't actually know who that is. It's one of the things I love about Braden, is you took him to some play or something, and you ran into Martin Freeman and loads of other people, and he didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
it's really nice to have that bit of. I find if you surround yourself with actors too much, you go mental.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He didn't know what I'd done or I'd done. So, and he's very proud of it all, and he loves it all. He's very supportive of the demands it makes on our relationship, but it wasn't the condition that he wanted to sort of tag onto the side of that. And also, after all these years, to have somebody who says, I'm so proud of you, that's really good, and whatever. And of course, he has the joy of having to read him for my self-tapes when you aren't available and you aren't around.
Is he good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he has a more limited range than somebody who's untrained. He was very, very good, as all the cast of EastEnders, when I was learning an awful lot of dialogue within 10 days before starting shooting really quickly. And I happen to know the wonderfully, gloriously over-the-top Harriet Thorpe, who plays Elaine Peacock, who I was going to be doing a lot of things with. And when I actually got onto set with her for the first night, we did a take or two, and I said, it's actually quite difficult doing this with you, because I'm actually settled into doing this with a 6'4" Canadian.
He also makes up for it with all the cameras and gimbals and running your socials, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Anyway, amazing.
It's been lovely to talk to you.
And you. Thank you, Paul.
Pleasure.